it basically lets us check the type of a prop. For example, here we can check if the prop text is a string. If we run this app and text is not a string, it would show a warning in the console. So now we use a different tool called TypeScript, which is better at this type of type checking. So React removed the prop types feature in favor of TypeScript. React also removed default props. If a prop is undefined, this feature lets us set a default value. So now we can do this with normal JavaScript, so we don't need this React feature anymore. Now that we learned that prop types was replaced by TypeScript, let's learn how to set up TypeScript with React. We'll go back to VS Code, and to set up TypeScript with React, we can use the create Vite command. So in the command line, we'll create a new tab and make sure this is running in the React course folder. And we're going to run the command npx create-vite. And we'll type @ to give it a specific version. And we'll click this link in the description, go to lesson 11, and we'll use this version of Vite. So copy the version that you see on your page, and in here we'll paste and press enter. If it asks to install the package, press Y and press enter. And as a review, Create Vite creates a new project. So let's name this project e-commerce-project-ts or TypeScript and press enter. For the framework, we're going to press down and choose React. And for the variant, we're going to choose TypeScript. So this will create a new React project that uses TypeScript. If we look at the code inside source, notice that it uses TSX files instead of JSX. TSX means this code uses TypeScript, while JSX means it uses JavaScript. So now to run this project, we're going to follow the instructions that we see. So for me, I'll cd into e-commerce-project-ts and run npm install to install all the packages that we need. And then I'm going to open the tab that's running the front end, and I'll press Ctrl+C to stop the front end so we don't have any issues. And then in the TypeScript tab, we're going to run npm run dev to start this project. And now we'll open this in the browser. So I already have it open. So I'm going to go in here and open this tab and refresh. Now we have a new React project, but this project uses TypeScript instead of JavaScript. And now I'll give you an intro to TypeScript. Let's go back to our code. And inside the TypeScript project, we're going to open app.tsx. So first of all, what is TypeScript? TypeScript is just JavaScript with extra features. So notice that this TypeScript code is the same as JavaScript code. The syntax is the same, and the features are the same. For example, in here, in TypeScript, we can create a variable the same way as JavaScript using const message equals the string hello. And then we can console.log message. So as you can see, TypeScript is just JavaScript. However, TypeScript gives us some extra features on top of JavaScript. The main feature is we can add types to our variables. So what are types? Remember that JavaScript has different types of values, like numbers, strings, and objects. In TypeScript, we can set what type of value is inside a variable. For example, in this variable, we have a string. So after the variable name, we can type colon, space, and string. So this tells TypeScript that this variable contains a string. So now below this, if I type message and then dot, TypeScript knows that this is a string. So now it's able to suggest all the features of a string, like to lowercase and brackets. So using TypeScript, our computer can give us better autocomplete suggestions. Next, if I type message dot to fixed and brackets, to fixed only works with numbers. Because TypeScript knows that this is a string, it's going to give us an error saying that to fixed does not work on strings. So this feature is called type checking. TypeScript checks if this code works with this type of value, and this helps us avoid errors. In JavaScript, there is no type checking. So if I want to put this code on my website, JavaScript will just let me do it, and it will crash my website. But in TypeScript, if I want to put this code on my website, I would save this code, and then in my command line, press Ctrl+C to stop the server, and run npm run build. Notice that TypeScript actually blocks us from building this code and putting it on our website because there's an error with the types. So as you can see, TypeScript gives us type checking, which helps us avoid a lot of these coding errors and helps us keep our code safer. Another feature of TypeScript is type inference. Type inference means TypeScript can figure out the type automatically. For example, in this code, this variable obviously contains a string. So we actually don't need to set the type manually here. If we delete this type, TypeScript will infer or figure out that this is a string. So I can remove it and save, and the error check still works because TypeScript knows that this is a string. Another example of type inference is up here in useState. So this count variable contains the number 0. TypeScript will infer or figure out that count is a number. So if we do count.toLowerCase and brackets, it's going to give us an error because toLowerCase only works with strings, and TypeScript figured out that this is a number. So as you can see, TypeScript is just JavaScript, but it adds extra features like type checking and type inference to our code. And this helps us find and avoid errors. So now let's save this code, and we'll save these changes into Git. In the Git section, at the top, we're going to use the message create new React TypeScript project and press commit. So we just learned how to create a new React project that uses TypeScript. Now let's learn how to convert an existing project, like our e-commerce project, to TypeScript. To do that, we're just going to move all of our changes over to the new TypeScript project. Before we begin, if you have any issues during this process, please check the troubleshooting guide in the description, since things might change depending on the version of Vite. To make this easier, in the e-commerce project, we're going to delete the Node Modules folder for now. And then we'll make a copy of this folder. So we'll right-click, copy, and we'll collapse these folders and click the outside and right-click and paste. So this just helps us keep track of progress when we're moving the changes over. So we're going to start from top to bottom. First, we'll look at the public folder. So in here, the change we made is we added this images folder. So we're going to take the public folder and we're going to drag it to the TypeScript project. And click Move and click Replace. Next, let's go into the source folder and we're going to move our changes over one by one. So first, in the Assets folder, we didn't make any changes to this folder, so we're not going to move it over, and we can just delete this folder. As a reminder, we're not trying to move all of our code over. We want to start from a default TypeScript project and then only move our changes over to the new project. So let's continue and look at the components folder. So this folder is completely new. So we're going to move this entire folder over to the TypeScript project inside the source folder. And click Move. And if it asks to update the imports, we're going to click No, because we're going to move everything over. Next, we're going to go back up, and the Pages folder is new. So we're going to drag this folder into the TypeScript project inside source. And click Move. And update the imports, click No. Next, we'll scroll up, and the Utils folder is new. So we're going to select this folder and drag it into the TypeScript folder inside source. So move and click No. And next, we'll keep going one by one. For app.css, we made it empty. So we're going to move this over. So drag it into source, click Move, and click Replace. And scroll back up. For app.jsx, we made a bunch of changes in here. So we're going to move this over. So drag it into source and click Move. However, notice in the TypeScript project, the file is called app.tsx. So we're going to replace this code with our file. So first, we're going to select this and delete app.tsx. And then we'll right-click app.jsx and rename it to TSX. Now we'll scroll back up and continue moving our changes. So index.css, we completely changed this file. So we're going to move it into the TypeScript project, into source, click Move, and click Replace. And scroll back up. And finally, in main.jsx, we just added the router. So let's move this file as well. We'll select it and drag it into source and move. And again, in TypeScript, the file is called main.tsx. We'll select it and delete. And we're going to rename our file, right-click, rename, main.tsx, and press Enter. Update the imports, select No. We'll scroll back up, and we moved all of the code from the source folder, so we can delete it. Next, we don't need to move the starting code folder because this was just for practice when we were setting up this project. So we can just delete this folder. Now let's move all the files over to the TypeScript project. So in git ignore, we didn't make any changes to this file, so we don't need to move it over, and we can delete it. In eslint.config.js, we added one change to this file at the bottom, which is we added this rule to disable prop types. So we'll select this code and copy. And in the TypeScript project, we're going to open eslint.config. And at the bottom, in this rules object, we're going to paste and move that change over and save. So again, we don't want to move all of our code over. We just want to move the changes over because a lot of this code is specific to TypeScript. So we'll scroll back up here and we can delete this file because we moved it over. Next, let's keep going in here. For index.html, we changed a few parts of this code. So we're going to move these changes over. To help us compare this code with the TypeScript version, I'm going to scroll down and take this index.html and then move it at the bottom here so that I can compare these side by side. So first, the first 3 lines here, we did not make any changes, so we can skip them. And then here, the next 3 lines, we also did not make any changes, so we can skip them. And here, we added a base element. So we're going to select this and copy. And in the TypeScript version, we're going to paste that change. And here, we also deleted the title. So in the TypeScript version, we're also going to delete the title. And here, we added a font called Roboto. So we're going to move this change by selecting it and copy. And in here, we'll paste the font. And if we need to fix the formatting, we can select this and press Shift-Tab to remove some indents. And I'll scroll down. And for the rest of the code, we did not make any changes. So now we moved all the changes over. I'm going to save this file and close this for now. And then in the copy, we can delete index.html. And next, we don't need to move package.lock.json over because this will be auto-generated when we npm install. So we can just delete this file. And I'll scroll back up. And we'll move over package.json. In this file, we didn't change anything at the top, but we did add some dependencies and dev dependencies. So we're going to move these over. We'll select the dependencies and copy. And then in the TypeScript project, open package.json. And in these dependencies, we'll type comma and paste. And then we'll remove any duplicates. So we'll remove React and React DOM and save. And we'll scroll back up and open package.json. And we'll do the same thing with the dev dependencies. So we'll select all these dependencies and copy. And in the TypeScript project, package.json, in the dev dependencies, at the bottom, we'll type comma and paste. And we'll remove all these duplicates. So I'll remove ESLint, and I'll remove these duplicates, and these duplicates, and these duplicates, and remove this until there are no more duplicates remaining. And now we'll save, and then we're going to run npm install to make sure we successfully install all these packages. In the command line, we'll go to the tab for the TypeScript project, and we'll run npm install. And now we can scroll up and delete package.json. And we'll keep going. For readme.md, we didn't change this file, so we can delete it. And this file, setuptest.js, is new. So we'll move this over to the TypeScript project. And we'll scroll up. And we're going to move over vite.config.js. So in here, we added a bunch of configurations. So in the TypeScript project, we're going to drag vite.config.ts at the bottom. And we're going to move our changes over. So inside the config, we added some stuff for the React config. So we're going to select this React config and copy, and then select this code, remove it, and paste. And we'll keep going. So all of these configs are new. So we can just select this code and then copy. And inside the TypeScript version, we're going to paste and save. So now we moved all of our changes over to the new project, and we can delete this file. And I'll close this for now. And finally, vtest.config.js is new. So we can drag it into the project. And now we moved all of our changes over into the TypeScript project, and I can delete this copy. Next, we're going to go into the TypeScript project, and we're going to fix the errors. First, we'll open main